If you love the great outdoors, you might want to think twice before stepping outside. That's right, folks. Rabid butterflies are on the prowl, and they're not here to sip nectar. These ferocious flappers are armed with a vigorously booping proboscis, out to turn your peaceful hike into a battle zone. So what's the survival plan? Forget bug spray, grab a tennis racket. It's your best defense against these deceptively delicate demons. Sure, it sounds like a bad sci-fi movie, but this is real life. The next time you see a butterfly, remember, it's not here to be admired. It's here to boop you into oblivion. So gear up, stay alert, and maybe practice your backhand. Stay safe, adventurers, and remember, in the world of flutter and fight, it's boop or be booped.
Am I the only one that didn't know a simple kitchen tool could become an instrument of horror? Let's dive into the chilling details. 45 people have tragically lost their lives in what can only be described as a bizarre and horrifying incident at Diddley McEpstaddy Manor. Among the victims is Diddley McEpstaddy himself. The weapon? An electric egg beater. Witnesses describe the perpetrator as bald with a barcode tattoo on his neck. Local police are now detaining all bald individuals with tattoos for questioning. In an unprecedented move, President Kermit the Frog is proposing a nationwide ban on egg beaters in an effort to prevent future violence. This incident leaves us with more questions than answers. Stay tuned for further updates as this shocking story unfolds. I'm sure you've heard the news of Britney Spears' new death metal band, Eyeball Scooper, and her new album, Velocity Splatter, but just wait until you hear this. If you haven't seen Britney's Crazy Knife dance last year, she's pushed the envelope even further. So, picture this. Britney Spears, chainsaws in hand, yes, 2 running chainsaws, busting out a dance that would make your hair stand on end. And who better to weigh in on this wild ride than Armin Gutjabber, frontman for the band Mom Stretcher Outer. His verdict? Meh-oh as fuck. Britney says she spent 2 days practicing this risky chainsaw dance and that her chainmail coif and bikini provided little protection, being merely plastic costume garb. That's right, folks, it's intense, and internet is losing its mind over Britney's chainsaw juggling dance, and Gutjabber says it's a win. This stunt has people talking, laughing, and maybe even a little bit terrified. But hey, isn't that what Death Meh-oh is all about? Keep it wild, keep it weird, and always keep them guessing.
Why do only 95% of flying monkeys fear the BERT-2D2? Because they haven't been atomized yet. Introducing the BERT-2D2 counter-monkey robot, the ultimate CMON system you never knew the world needed. This little wonder is designed to neutralize those pesky flying monkeys from Oz. It's packing a 5.56 rotary gun that spits out 4,000 rounds per minute. That's right, 4,000 rounds a minute. That's over 30-55 grain bullets, turning a flying primate inside out in a split second. But wait, there's more. The BERT-2D2 doesn't just shoot wildly, it's got the state-of-the-art flying monkey engagement radar. Yep, the FME radar, housed in its phallic dome. According to the DoD, this bad boy leaves the 20mm phalanx system lost in the clouds of red mist when it comes to dealing with those agile little gremlins. So if you've got a flying monkey issue, and really who doesn't, the BERT-2D2 has got your hard-earned tax dollars in your back. Say goodbye to your flying monkey woes with the BERT-2D2, because even in Oz, or in flying monkey-infested Ohio, you deserve peace of mind.
The world recently became aware of a peculiar new disease. It is called Pineus sphincter rectus, or pine cone disease. This illness causes people to excrete pine cones. The discovery was unsettling. Medical professionals were baffled. The World Health Organization quickly took notice. This disease was unlike anything seen before. The most obvious symptom of pine cone disease is the excretion of pine cones. Patients report abdominal cramping before expulsion. The size of the pine cones varies. Some are small and easily passed. Others are large and require medical assistance. The World Health Organization is particularly concerned about the disease's potential to mutate. They fear it could transform into something even more dangerous: pine tree disease. This mutated form could cause sufferers to excrete entire pine trees. More research is needed to understand this bizarre phenomenon. The emergence of pinecone disease is alarming. It highlights the constant threat of new and unknown diseases. Urgent research is critical. Scientists need to understand how the disease spreads. They also need to develop treatments and a possible vaccine. Containment is crucial. Quarantine measures are necessary to prevent a global pandemic. Public awareness campaigns can educate people about the symptoms and risks. International collaboration is essential to share information and resources.
Are you horrified by the news of 25 rocket-skate fatalities? You're not alone. This December, the National Transportation Safety Board recorded 25 fatalities involving Acme rocket skates. 15 people tragically ran off large cliffs. 5 were crushed by falling pianos, and another 5 were gruesomely tied into human knots. The CEO of Acme, Elroy Dank, dismisses these incidents, advising the public to stop chasing roadrunners. But can we really ignore these senseless deaths? Safety advocates demand accountability and immediate action. If you use or know someone who uses Acme rocket skates, please stay vigilant and prioritize safety. This is a problem we can't afford to overlook.
What happens when a daredevil meets the impossible? The tragic story of Erwin Fledermaus shows us exactly that. Erwin Fledermaus, a local British daredevil, tragically lost his life in a daring attempt to cross the Atlantic Ocean. His chosen method? A 16th century suit of plate armor and a homemade trebuchet. The result, only 300 feet of flight before a fatal impact. Experts say the outcome was sadly inevitable. Local flat earthers claim this proves the Earth is flat. According to them, Erwin would have made it to America if the Earth was actually round. A vigil will be held this Thursday at Virginia Beach near the trampoline and vat of Jell-O. Let's remember Erwin's adventurous spirit and hope his story serves as a lesson in the limits of human ambition. Bob Ross, famed painter and wearer of extraordinary underwear, never expected to be a hero. He just wanted to paint happy little trees. But fate, it seems, had other plans, especially in Annisland. Annisland, a peaceful country known for its unusual name and even more unusual inhabitants, was in deep trouble. This wasn't just a rogue squirrel eating all the birdseed kind of trouble. This was a full-blown zombie beaver apocalypse. But Bob Ross, with his trusty palette and a pair of laser-equipped underpants, don't ask, was ready to face the hairy horde. After all, who needs weapons when you have weaponized undergarments and a soothing voice? These weren't your average tree-gnawing, dam-building beavers. Oh no, these were zombie beavers with glowing red eyes, an insatiable hunger for human flesh, and a serious lack of personal hygiene. They swarmed from the Great Anus River, a teeming mass of teeth and fur ready to chomp Annisland into oblivion. Their leader, a hulking beast with one eye and a penchant for nose-picking, went by the name of Bucky. The Annislandians, a colorful bunch known for their love of polka music and their uncanny ability to predict the weather by the smell of their socks, were terrified. They needed a hero, and fast. Enter Bob Ross, stage left, in his magical underwear. Now, Bob wasn't a violent man. He believed in happy little accidents and the power of positive thinking, but even Bob had his limits. And watching a horde of undead beavers terrorize innocent citizens was definitely past them. There are no mistakes, Bob said calmly, adjusting his afro and aiming his laser-equipped underpants towards Bucky. Only happy little accidents waiting to happen. Pew, pew! The lasers, shooting from the waistband of Bob's tighty-whities, blasted 2 oncoming zombie beavers into a cloud of smoke and fur. The remaining beavers paused, momentarily stunned. No one messes with Bob Ross's happy little accidents, especially not when he's packing heat in his pants. The battle for Annisland had begun. The battle raged on, a blur of fur, teeth, and laser fire. Bob Ross, surprisingly nimble in his tighty-whities, dodged and weaved, his lasers turning zombie beavers into piles of ash and splintered teeth. But Bucky, the one-eyed, nose-picking leader of the zombie beaver horde, was a formidable opponent. He charged at Bob, his sharp teeth bared in a gruesome grin. Bob, caught off guard, tripped and fell, landing right at the edge of the aptly named butt crack of doom, a deep chasm that reeked of rotten eggs and despair. One wrong move, and Bob would be taking a one-way trip to the smelly abyss. Things were not looking good for our hero in his magical underwear. And things weren't good. Bob was then pounced on and gruesomely mauled to death by Bucky the Beaver. His gory kibbles splattered into the butt crack of doom. This was a very unhappy accident. The laser undies then became caught on Bucky's head. As Bucky returned to feast on villagers, the haphazard lasers set the scenery ablaze. Everyone died except the beavers. The end.
Ever wondered what happens when a wild night goes too far? Brace yourselves. In a bizarre and terrifying turn of events, Dallas witnessed an unimaginable scene last night. A local Chip and Dale's establishment was ransacked by none other than chimpanzees. Yes, chimpanzees, allegedly under the influence of methamphetamine. Witnesses describe a chaotic melee as these drugged-up primates attacked dancers, inflicting gruesome injuries. Faces were chewed, and in a shocking act of brutality, the chimps used their death grips to forcibly remove, well, let's just say, certain sensitive body parts. The horror didn't end there. Onlookers were pelted with these dismembered parts, leaving everyone in shock and disbelief. Authorities are baffled, and the investigation is ongoing. The question remains, how did this nightmare unfold in the first place? Stay tuned as we uncover more details about this wild, disturbing night in Dallas. This is a story you won't soon forget. This is gonna blow your mind, or maybe your nose. Ever wonder what your farts taste like? We're not quite sure what farts should taste like, but after extensive research, we figured it out. Introducing Yummy Farts, the new alternative way to vape. With flavors like spaghetti fart, egg omelet fart, and even pineapple pizza fart, your taste buds will be on the weirdest ride of their life. And don't forget the fan favorite, oatmeal fart. It's like rotten breakfast in a cloud. But wait, there's more. Buy your first Yummy Farts vape today and get a free meat and potatoes fart cartridge. Because nothing says welcome like digested comfort food in vapor form. Join the Yummy Farts revolution and turn every puff into a giggle. It's a gag. No pun intended. Remember, it's not just a vape, it's a conversation starter. So grab your Yummy Farts today and let the fun begin. Your taste buds and your friends will thank you. Yummy Farts, the flavors that'll have you tearing up.
Today I've got a story that's as heartbreaking as it is bizarre. This is a real story. Names and events have been made up to protect the innocent. Meet Squigglepod, the one-legged greyhound who never caught a break. Squigglepod was born with just one leg, which made racing an impossible dream. At the starting gate, while other dogs bolted towards victory, Squigglepod would just kick in circles. People would laugh, not understanding the silent struggle of this unique greyhound. No one placed bets on him, no one believed in him. But life had another twist in store for Squigglepod. He was adopted by a fisherman who saw an unusual use for him. This kind-hearted yet misguided man decided to use Squigglepod as an anchor. You see, sometimes we don't understand the impact of our choices. Squigglepod, trying to find his place in the world, was thrown into the cold, unforgiving sea. Sadly, within the first 30 seconds, Squigglepod's struggle ended. Couldn't even be a good anchor. The fisherman, realizing that a cold, dead doggo didn't do him any good, he decided to chop up Squigglepod and use him as bait. A greyhound who once had dreams of racing, reduced to mere chunks in the water. It's a story of misunderstanding, misplaced intentions, and ultimate tragedy. So, what can we take from Squigglepod's tale? Maybe it's a reminder to look beyond appearances, to understand and appreciate the silent struggles of others, to ensure that every living being, no matter how different, is given a chance to live their life with dignity. If Squigglepod's story moved you, make sure to keep in mind that sometimes life just sucks. Is what it is. Until next time, stay humane.
You need to hear this if you're tired of being too smart. Let's introduce the Unbrain Good Brain Nerfing Kit. Are you tired of overthinking and overachieving? Wish you could cut your potential down to a more manageable size? Say hello to the Unbrain Good Brain Nerfing Kit. Our kit includes everything you need to make thinking a thing of the past. A spork and a rubber mallet. Don't just take our word for it. Listen to our satisfied customer. Bob Feynman says, I once had a three thingy IQ and would waste away my potato. I'd be all sad at, like, I was braining way too good. Now, 'cause unbrain good, I done need no think much. Putting fries and sandwich in, putting fries and sandwich in, putting fries in, putting fries and sandwich in, putting fries and sandwich in thingy. Exciting now. Yay! So why wait? Get your Unbrain Good Brain Nerfing Kit today, because sometimes less brain really is more. Order now and get a free pair of Groucho glasses.
Dallas, Texas. A city known for big hair, big trucks, and even bigger personalities. But nothing can prepare it for chimpanzees going wild. A scene straight out of a low-budget horror movie, only this was real life, folks, and trust me, the reality is way more bizarre than any Hollywood screenwriter could dream up. A gang of chimpanzees, hopped up on meth, are tearing through the streets of downtown Dallas. Yeah, you heard me right. Chimps on a rampage. These aren't your friendly neighborhood zoo animals either. These primates rip off wieners. They're ripping off people's wieners and generally causing a ruckus, the likes of which Dallas has never seen. The police are baffled. Animal control is terrified. The chaos reached its peak at a place called Chippendales, a gentleman's club known for its questionable taste in decor and even more questionable clientele. Now, I'm not saying what those chimps did in there was right, ripping faces and wieners off as chimps are known to do, especially these chimps. I'm not saying it wasn't hilarious either. Let's just say it is a night the patrons of Chippendales wouldn't soon forget. The big question on everyone's mind, besides how the hell do you round up a bunch of meth-addled primates, was where did these furry little wiener ripping off sons of guns come from? The answer, as it turned out, was about as Texas as it gets. Billy Bob's badassery menagerie. Now, I've seen my fair share of roadside attractions in my day, but Billy Bob's badassery menagerie was in a league of its own. It was the kind of place that had tourist trap written all over it, but somehow managed to be so bad it circled back around to being almost charming. Almost. They had everything. Three-legged tigers, cross-eyed crocodiles, a bear that could allegedly predict the weather. It was always wrong, by the way. And of course a troop of wiener-ripping chimpanzees, because what self-respecting Texas roadside zoo would be complete without some primates? Security at Billy Bob's wasn't exactly Fort Knox. Security consisted of some staff members whose only role of employment was to yell, "Hey, get back in there!" So it wasn't exactly shocking when the news broke that the chimps had busted out. The how, however, was a different story. The chimps hadn't just wandered off. They ripped off all the staff's wieners before they left. Now let's talk about Chippendales. It is the kind of place where the carpet is sticky, the air is thick with the scent of cheap cologne and regret, and the only thing more questionable than the hygiene is the moral compass of the clientele. So yeah, not exactly the kind of place you'd expect to find a bunch of escaped chimps, wiener-ripping chimps, but there they were in all their furry, frenetic glory, tearing the place apart like a pack of toddlers in a toy store, and tearing off wieners. They were swinging from the poles, chugging down abandoned beers, ripping off wieners, and generally behaving in a manner that would make even the most seasoned exotic dancer blush. Also, don't forget, they ferociously ripped off everyone's wieners, which is somewhat funny. The patrons, for their part, were equal parts terrified and pelted by chucked wieners. It's not every day you see a bunch of chimps get their groove on and rip off wieners. The Great Dallas Chimp wiener-ripping escapade, as it's coming to be known as, is about as chaotic as you'd expect. The city is in an uproar, the media is having a field day, and the poor saps who work at Chippendales are left to clean up the mess. Literally. Like scrape their splattered wieners off of the walls. Chimps can chuck disembodied wieners pretty hard, as it turns out. But the biggest mystery remained. How did those chimps get their hands on wieners? I mean, meth. This wasn't some low-grade banana peel hooch we were talking about. This was the hard stuff. The police are launching a full-scale investigation. They interrogated the staff at Billy Bob's, who, unsurprisingly, were about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. They're analysing security footage. It's a maelstrom of blood and flying wieners. It's probably on live leaks already. They're even bringing in a team of animal behaviourists to try and get inside the chimps' heads. But the answer, like the chimps themselves, remains elusive. And then there were those who claimed it was all just a big publicity stunt, orchestrated by Billy Bob himself. Whatever the truth may be, one thing was certain: the legend of the meth-crazed chimps of Dallas would live on. Meth-crazed, wiener-ripping chimps. Armin Gutjaber of the black metal band Mom Stretcher Outer has already chimed in saying, "It's me-oh as fuck."
Today I need to talk about a really disturbing incident that's shaken the safety community to its core. The first ever fatality involving the BERT-2D2 anti-flying monkey robot has been reported. These robots, dubbed CMON systems, are designed to shoot down pesky flying monkeys with an insane rate of fire. We're talking 4,000 rounds of 5.56 NATO per minute. Now, BERT-2D2 units stand just around 3 feet tall, with their rotary cannons mounted low to the ground. They're basically a miniaturized phalanxed sea-ram system that autonomously clomps about on legs. They're often ambling through busy streets on a mission to protect us from those feces-flinging pests. But here's where it gets dangerous. Flying monkeys dive low to attack, which means these robots are firing at a very precarious angle. Tragically, the worst fears have come true. A bystander was accidentally killed by a BERT-2D2 unit. Imagine walking down the street only to be caught in the crossfire aimed at a low-flying monkey. It's a gruesome and heartbreaking reality for the victim's family and a massive wake-up call for all of us. Boston Dynamics is scrambling to address this issue. They're planning to retrofit every unit with a buzzer and a flashing light so people can be warned and hopefully dive out of the way before the BERT-2D2 starts firing. But is that enough? This incident raises serious questions about the safety measures in place for these robots.
Hello folks, welcome to another episode of Happy Fairy Tale Storytime. Today's short story is written by 8-year-old Mikhail Abre, titled The Big Smurf Friendship Dance. Okay, let's get into this. Smurfs, hundreds of them, pouring from the woods, their cheerful tunes swelling with intensity. But they weren't singing about mushrooms. They swarmed, tiny blue devils with eyes like ice. The townsfolk, caught off guard, stood no chance. Their screams were swallowed by the morning air. Their small size was deceptive. At first glance, they seemed harmless, almost cute. But beneath that innocent exterior lay a ferocity unmatched by any other creature. Their eyes, once filled with curiosity, now burned with an insatiable hunger for destruction. Each Smurf was impossibly strong. Their strength defied logic, as if they were imbued with some dark magic. They could lift objects many times their size and weight, their tiny muscles rippling with power. It was a sight both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Wielding war hammers and maces, cracking skulls, tearing limbs, even some with bare hands, they cackled with glee. The joyful singing became chanting with smacking sound of cleaved flesh mixed with the sickening crunch of bone, creating a symphony of chaos. Blood splattered across their tiny faces, but they didn't flinch. Instead, they reveled in the carnage, their laughter echoing through the air. No playful mischief here. This was calculated brutality. They attacked with a purpose, each strike aimed to maim or incapacitate, if not kill. There was no hesitation, no mercy. Their eyes, once filled with innocence, now gleamed with a cold, ruthless determination. They were no longer the playful creatures of legend. They had become something far more sinister. The townsfolk fought back, of course. Armed with whatever they could find, they stood their ground, determined to protect their homes and loved ones. Pitchforks, shotguns, and makeshift weapons were all they had, but they fought with a courage born of desperation. They knew the odds were against them, but they refused to give up. But pitchforks and shotguns were useless against the onslaught. The Smurfs were relentless, as the gaps in their numbers were quickly filled. For every Smurf that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. The villagers were overwhelmed, their defenses crumbling under the relentless assault. It was a losing battle, and they knew it. The Smurfs swarmed their victims, tearing them apart, leaving trails of blood and bone in their wake. The ground was littered with the remains of those who had tried to stand against them. The air was thick with the stench of death, and the once peaceful village was now a scene of utter devastation. The sweet smell of breakfast was replaced by the metallic tang of blood. Many Smurfs were deep purple, if not completely red, saturated with human blood and biomass. The village, once filled with laughter and life, was now a silent graveyard. The Smurfs had left their mark, a brutal reminder of their power and savagery. And as the sun rose, casting its light on the carnage, it was clear that nothing would ever be the same again. Then, the true horror began. It was a night like no other, where the air was thick with an unsettling silence, and the moon cast an eerie glow over the desolate landscape. The once vibrant town of Harmony Creek had become a ghostly shadow of its former self, a place where nightmares roamed freely. The Smurfs weren't just killing, they were repurposing. The villagers who once lived peaceful lives were now subjected to unimaginable horrors. Their bodies were no longer their own, twisted and manipulated into grotesque forms that defied the natural order. Using a grotesque combination of technology and dark magic, the Smurfs had discovered a way to merge flesh with metal, creating abominations that were neither fully human nor machine. These creations were a testament to their twisted ingenuity, a blend of organic and inorganic that defied comprehension. They fused metal and flesh and climbed inside to take over each body. The process was excruciating, a symphony of pain and suffering that echoed through the empty streets. The victims' screams were a haunting reminder of the horrors that had befallen them, their voices lost in the cacophony of machinery and dark magic. Victims became vehicles, their bodies twisted into grotesque vessels of machinery. They moved with a jerky, unnatural motion, their limbs controlled by the Smurfs' dark will. Each step they took was a painful reminder of their lost humanity, a dance of agony and despair. The worst part? The victims were still aware. Trapped within their own bodies, they could feel every twist of metal, every surge of dark magic that coursed through their veins. Their minds were prisons, their thoughts a constant reminder of the horrors they endured, trapped inside their own bodies, forced to watch the carnage. Slaves to the Smurfs, piloting them inside their hollowed torsos. They became biomechanical mechs. These once human beings were now vehicles of destruction, their every move dictated by the Smurfs' malevolent intent. Their screams were sometimes silent, lost in the whirring gears and hissing steam that now powered their every move. The sound of machinery drowned out their cries, a constant reminder of their new, horrific existence. The air was filled with the scent of oil and blood, a sickening combination that permeated every corner of the town. Harmony Creek was no more. The once peaceful village had been transformed into a nightmare, a place where the boundaries between life and death, flesh and metal, had been irrevocably blurred. In its place, a charnel house of meat and metal. The town was now a grotesque monument to the Smurfs' dark ambitions, a place where the line between man and machine had been obliterated. The once vibrant community was now a twisted, nightmarish landscape, a testament to the horrors that had been unleashed upon it. Sheriff Brody, holed up in the police station, watched the carnage through his security monitors. His hand trembled as he reached for the phone. There was only one person who might understand this madness, one person who might be able to stop it. Gargamel, the Smurfs' nemesis, always portrayed as the villain. But what if they had it wrong? What if Gargamel wasn't evil, but desperate, trying to warn the world about the true nature of the Smurfs? Brody could only pray he wasn't too late. Gargamel, villain or savior? The question has haunted many for centuries. Is he the dark sorcerer who seeks to destroy, or is there more to his story than meets the eye? The line crackled to life. A gruff voice answered, tinged with bitterness and weary resignation. It was a voice that carried the weight of countless battles and endless nights of plotting. "What do you want?" It was Gargamel. His tone was sharp, almost cutting, as if he had been disturbed from some deep, dark contemplation. Brody took a deep breath. He knew this conversation could change everything. The fate of his town and perhaps the world hung in the balance. My town, the Smurfs, they're not like in the cartoons. They're killing everyone. His voice trembled, the weight of his words sinking into the silence that followed. Silence, then a dry chuckle. It was a sound that sent shivers down Brody's spine, a sound that hinted at dark secrets and hidden truths. "So they've finally revealed their true nature to the world." Gargamel's voice was laced with a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. "What took them so long?" Gargamel's voice was devoid of humor. It was a question that carried the weight of years of waiting, of watching, of knowing. It was the sound of a man who had seen too much, warned too often, only to be ignored. A man who had been painted as a villain, but perhaps in the end was the only one who truly understood the danger. "Can you stop them?" Brody pleaded, his voice hoarse with desperation. Gargamel sighed, a long, weary sound. "Perhaps. But you won't like it. Death would be a mercy compared to what they're doing." Brody's blood ran cold. What could be worse than the carnage he was witnessing? Gargamel's next words confirmed his fears. "They're not just killing, Sheriff. They're building an army of metal and flesh, and your town is just the beginning." The phone clattered to the floor. Brody stared at the carnage on the monitors. The Smurfs, their laughter echoing through the silent station, continued their work. Harmony Creek was gone. In its place stood a testament to their cruelty, a monument to their true nature, a town of screaming metal powered by the souls of the damned, piloted by entranced Smurfs, and it was spreading. Inside their metal and meat prisons, the townsfolk screamed. They begged for death, for oblivion, anything to escape the torment. But their pleas were lost in the whirring machinery, drowned out by the clanging gears and hissing steam and Smurf pilots that were now their only companions. They were prisoners in their own bodies, forced to watch the world burn, forced to witness the end of everything they held dear. And the worst part? It was only just beginning. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the ruined town, the Smurfs gathered. Their work was far from over. Harmony Creek was just the first domino. The world was vast, ripe for the taking, and they had just the army to do it. The blue twilight settled over the land, a harbinger of the darkness to come. The age of the Smurfs had begun, and it would be written in blood and steel. As Brody stood there, grappling with the grim reality laid bare by Gargamel, a new sound pierced the air, a distant rumbling growing louder and more ominous with each passing second. He turned towards the source, his heart pounding in his chest. The Fraggles had arrived. Unlike the cheerful creatures of childhood tales, these Fraggles were armed and ready for battle. They carried a strange mineral-based concoction, a substance so potent that it dissolved Smurfs into a gelatinous blue goo on contact. The ground shook as they marched into town, their eyes steely with determination. The ensuing battle was swift and brutal. Smurfs, once the terror of the town, were reduced to puddles of blue sludge, turning the bloody landscape into an unworldly purple. For a brief moment it seemed the nightmare was over. The townspeople dared to hope, to believe that their saviors had come. But hope was fleeting. The Fraggles, now the new rulers of the town, revealed their true intentions. They turned the once peaceful community into a radish-hash cartel hub, controlling the citizens through shock and awe. Any act of defiance was met with unspeakable torture and public execution, horrors that exceed what any human has done to another. Sometimes they just randomly picked victims to remind the community of their newfound power. Brody watched in horror as the town fell into a new kind of darkness. The people lived in constant fear, their lives ruled by the iron fist of the Fraggles. Anything was better than being turned into hollow biomechs. But this new reality was a far cry from the freedom they had once known. Everyone lived miserably ever after. The end.
Wash the away and kill people every day.